Here we go. So this is Denise M. Simpson with the Courageous Heart Writing Course, Level 1. This is Class 3. We're going to talk about setting tonight. We might touch upon some character development. We'll see, but next week I'll focus more on character development. So with that, let me share my screen and we will get started. All right, and this is all about bringing your story to life, finding your writer's voice and getting in that writing flow. So tonight's agenda, we will check on the accountability and celebrations, challenges, and insights. We'll talk about setting. This is an overview of what setting means. I am going to review the plot W diagram first because it so ties in with setting, okay? And then we'll have the writing hero, love support seat, and then your next inspired actions. All right. And as always, you know, feel free to jump in there with questions or comments. But for now, let's create our sacred circle. So let's just take 3 nice deep breaths. And coming down into our bodies, letting go of the day. Connecting soul to soul, mind to mind, heart to heart. And just allowing yourself to breathe and be present. Sinking into your bodies. Let that chaotic, crazy, busy mind just take a breath. Relax. Beautiful. And what do you sense? What do you notice? Just by breathing. Yeah. And if you want to deepen the experience, you can even put your hands on your heart. Let's just breathe some love in. Breathing love in from all corners of the world. And on the exhale, spreading that love outward. There's an infinite amount of love. The love that connects all of us. That heals our bodies. That soothes the worries, anxieties, fears in the mind. That allows us to connect to our spiritual source. Whatever that may be for you. And just knowing that all is right in this one moment as we create our sacred circle, our community of writing together. And so it is. Beautiful. So we're going to check on your goal progress, the celebrations you have, any challenges during the week, and any insights you've gained. So Ella, would you like to start? You mentioned you procrastinated for 3 days.
Well, yeah. No, I had Friday off from work and Saturday. And I said, I'm going to take Friday, Saturday, and I'm going to just focus on the time to get this done after a busy 5 weeks. And I thought a lot about the story. And I did gain some insights into it. And I discovered another writer of a similar age and feeling. His name is David Almond. And so I did a lot of brain stuff, but I didn't do a lot of writing my own story. But I did research on trees and stuff like that. So that was so it wasn't really procrastinating, but it was.
Okay, so that's the thing I want you to know. It wasn't really procrastinating. It's more percolating.
Percolating, okay.
You were percolating, and you were researching. So one thing we do—
I think so.
Yeah, you think so. Good. So you're owning 2 thumbs up. You're owning that, right? So one thing I do want you to notice, especially with this course, yes, we do set our SMART goals. However, that research is part of the writing process. The percolation is part of the writing process. finding those sources, excuse me, is
Mhm.
part of your writing process. So I still count those as wins, and then own it, you know, and it's not always about pushing to produce the writing, okay?
Okay.
Sometimes we actually need and I want you to discern when it's procrastination, or discern, I need an afternoon napping or in a hammock or lying on the grass watching the clouds float by
Yeah.
to rejuvenate the energy,
Mm-hmm.
to relax the crazy mind. So that's the distinction. Procrastination's something else, right? But if this was more percolation, then that's still a celebration for you.
And I took advice from Lauren and Yasmin. I went out really for the first time and really stood under this tree and looked at the tree and really tried to take it in as a whole thing. And it's like, wow, you know, it was really much more magnificent than I ever thought it was. So I'll take that too.
Yeah. Okay, so that leads me to a suggestion for you if you find it helpful, is you could actually even take photographs of that and put it on the board where you write.
Oh,
Do you
that's
have a
true.
writing nook, a writing place? Like you've got the bulletin board behind you.
Yep.
So that you could, you know, like you're developing a relationship with this tree.
Yeah.
So by having the photograph there, it's like, you know what? There's your buddy, right?
Okay.
Yeah, you can even name the tree perhaps, but that's beautiful. I love it. All right. And who would like to go next for their goal progress? How does that feel actually before I skip ahead?
For me personally?
Yeah, how does that feedback, the comments?
No, I think it's very helpful. And even though I didn't achieve my SMART goal, I found that my SMART goal was not appropriate to where I was in the story. I just created it artificially.
That's right.
So, no, that's very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, good. And who's next for their goal check-in?
I'll go.
Okay,
so I committed 2 or 3 hours or finishing a rough of the first chapter. Well, I did it, but I really am not happy with what I did. Okay. So I don't feel like I did anything.
Okay, so same commentary to you is don't discount what you did do. You know, Eloise, you didn't do it. You did it. It's not that you didn't do anything. You did it, but now you've got your inner critic and your judge holding court. And what are they saying? Is it not good enough?
No, I just think I need to develop the characters a little bit more and sort of create a fictional character that fits rather than build on a reality.
Okay, yeah, so you could end up with a fictionalized travel self-reflection book.
Yeah, because I'm already writing it in third person, and I like that. I like the telling a story about another person.
Yep.
So the parents though, initially I was thinking I would just write about my parents, and that's what I did, but after doing it, I'm just kind of feel like, well, parts of it is interesting, but it doesn't feel like a clear issue to overcome, I guess.
Okay, and so that clarity will come as you keep in your writing process and let this book evolve. Plus, I hope the next couple classes help you out as well. Okay, so it's still a celebration for rewriting or rewriting the first chapter?
No, I just added a chunk.
Okay, added a chunk, but that's writing. And you know, if the challenge was you didn't write 2 to 3 hours, then what I would question is, you know, what got in the way of?
No, I did write for 2 to 3 hours.
Okay, so
I just don't like what I wrote, so I don't want to use it. So it's like kind of a waste of time, but not a waste.
That's a draft, right? Yeah, it's a draft, right? So
It's a draft. You need to give yourself permission to write badly. And I have had 3 conversations in the last 2, today and yesterday, about nothing is wasted when you write. You may not publish what you wrote, but nothing's wasted because it's a process. You're going through the percolation, you're going through the generation, you're processing it in your mind and your heart and your body, because part of this is a body response to your writing. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Think about it, because even when your writers pick up your book, you want your readers. When your readers pick up your book, you want them to have a physical response, an emotional response, a cognitive, response to the writing. So Yasmin, in that sense, you're right on target. If you have such high standards, perhaps, I don't know if that's the case, you know what, just give yourself that permission to let it be, like Lauren said. That was great advice, Lauren. It's a draft. So divine timing, you're right where you should be.
Okay.
Can you just breathe and let it go a little bit? Because you're still trying to figure a lot of this story out.
Well, I can't think of my own experience this is where it comes back to the storytelling, right? I just can't find, I'm trying to think of a story that would accurately depict the dynamics of this family. And I can't think of a very good example. I can't think of how to tell that story either. Like, I need to hear someone else's story.
All right.
And then I'll just write it.
Okay. And can you just be with that for now and just go, all right, that's what it is. That's where I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just let it be okay. Here's what I do know. The more we judge it and the more we hold it in contempt, or the more it's criticized, the harder it will be for you to find that inspiration point of, boom, there's my story idea.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, be gentle with yourself, give yourself that love, that empathy. You do it with with your clients and stuff. It's like, how to do this. I know you know how, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, you need some of that self-love. As writers, we have to give ourselves self-love for our process. And our books are our babies. We need to give them space to nurture them and let them grow. They're still in the womb in some cases, right? And if not, if they're newborns, think about how gentle you are with a newborn. Because if not, you're going to snap a bone or the head's going to fall off. So, all right, great check-in. I hope that was helpful to you. All right, and I love that all 3 of you were talking to each other and supporting each other. So dynamite on building your community. Okay, Lauren, your turn.
I think I can echo a little bit. My goals changed, but I'm happy with what I did. I was able to work on editing the post I read last week. And instead of doing the prompt like I wanted to, I just journaled. I hadn't journaled a lot all summer and realized I was feeling a lot of anxiety with a lot of the new things we were doing. And I just sat down and kind of wrote that. So that made me feel better. And I feel like it's similar to Yasmin a bit. Like, I wouldn't probably put that out there, but it was just something I wrote in like a draft, and I can always build on it if I wanted to look at that one again in the future. And I got some ideas on more content ideas. So I feel like while I was kind of started to be hard on myself that I didn't get the time in, I started to say, well, look what I did do. And realized I had all these other little things come up that I didn't expect. And I'm realizing in my life, if I go with the flow more, things are so much better.
Yay! That's a big insight. Celebration for that.
Thank you. It's hard for me. I have to make myself look at that perspective.
Yeah. So I want you to take a breath right now and go and really breathe it in. Feel that insight in your body.
Oh no.
And Yasmin's letting some of that tension go. So Excellent. All right. And you know, Yasmin, celebration for you for having the courage to speak up about how unhappy you are with your writing, even though you know, added a big chunk in. So that's vulnerability. So I do want to acknowledge that. So celebration for all three of you.
Thanks.
Yep.
Okay, everybody.
Can I check in and celebrate for me today?
Go, girl.
I started in November 2018 getting my book, A Muse Yourself Writing, onto the Create Space, the print-on-demand paperback. And I started it and I dropped it like a hot potato and I haven't gone back. And it's come up because on that Great Pause book that I'm an author in, I get to link that to my author page. So now there was a notification that says, put your book on Create Space. I went back into it. So I worked like 4 hours today on that and it's coming along, but now I'm actually editing my document, my manuscript that I finalized in 2012. So sometimes we're never done, but I want to celebrate the heck out of the fact that I'm making huge progress. I built a
That's
new
amazing. My gosh.
so
Wow.
people are going to be able to push a button and get a paperback.
Woo!
Yeah, thank you. And
I
then
think
I'm
I scared Lauren right then. Sorry.
And then how cool is it now that it's like I'll have 2 books on my author page? I'm like, I'm so excited.
That's awesome. And that book is so, I got through 2, I think 2 or 3. It's so emotional. It's so good, but it really is very powerful book. It's really good.
Yeah, thank you. I was crying by the 3rd story and I'm story 4. So it was like getting a tissue by story 3.
Yeah.
The authors, because we've been meeting as a team for months now, you know, it's like they are such kick butt people. They are shining lights. And, you know, even in the first 3 stories, 2 of them have cancer.
Right.
But
Yeah.
the human beings are just like, they are so inspirational. It's phenomenal. And then I started skipping ahead reading a couple other people. I haven't even finished the whole book because it's like, oh, I can only read so much because it's
Right.
like such
Exactly.
yeah. But imagine how that book could help to uplift people. You know? And so that's what I want you to think about for yourself. What impact will your stories make when people read it? That's why your stories need to be told. You're the only ones who can write your stories, and they will touch people's hearts, minds, souls, lives. It's like, I love this. So, yes, it's a process, but just go with it. Okay, great check-in. I'm going to move us along. So I do want to go back here, and I've fleshed out the plot W a little bit more for you. So it is 3 acts. Again, this is based on Mary Carroll Moore's video. You know, the ordinary world is the status quo. Things are just rolling along until there's a trigger that happens, and then there's a call to action. Something's got to change, okay? And with that, you've got the downward action of a conflict or challenges, think COVID-19, okay? And there's a low point for the character, right? And so then it's a turning point though, because there has to be some improvement, right? And this is where in the hero's journey, the main character finds a mentor or assistance. You know, you're on your hero's journey for writers and you found a coach, right? And then the gifts. So, you know, with Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, you know, she's got her sidekicks of the lion, the Tin Man, and the Scarecrow. You know, the gifts are the ruby slippers, right? So the assistant's Belinda, the Good Witch, okay? But then there's the Act 2 is where we have the plot twist or the challenge, right? and there's a deeper threat. The stakes are getting higher. And in here, you're also telling the backstory until it reaches an even lower point. The first point is low, but this one can be an even lower point, okay? In the highest stakes. A lot of times this can be that life or death. You know, it could be the person losing their home. It could be, you know, the threat of a death, or maybe somebody does die, you know. In the romance novels, it's usually the love triangle, and all of a sudden it's like, will they, you know, will the character lose the love of their life type thing, okay? In Star Wars, you know, it's like they're battling the Death Star, and then they got to get the bomb through the little tiny core of the Death Star. Okay, so it's the final battle, and the hero has to expand who they are, evolve, or die. All right, the knight in shining armor battles the dragon, right? Okay, and the typical hero's journey, Act 3, there's got to be the resolution. All right, so here's the hero. After this battle, the character does have new knowledge, skills, abilities, new capacities, and it builds their confidence and or maturity, right? Luke is no longer this little farm boy from the backwoods riding around on his little, you know, planes, right? He just saved the universe against the the rebellion saved against the, oh my God, what do you call him? You know, Darth Vader and the, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm losing my words, but you get the idea. So the resolution is there has to be some sort of victory, and then it is a return. It's a return back to the ordinary world, but it's no longer as ordinary, or the world could be ordinary, but the hero is transformed, and usually there's some rewards. So Dorothy does go back and wakes up in Kansas after this whole dream sequence of Oz, but she's transformed because now she never wants to leave, you know, Auntie M, right? So that's the plot. What questions do you have on that before I move forward into setting?
Is backstory just throughout?
Backstory can be throughout, and for a writer, here's the piece, and we're going to talk about setting. As the writer, you need to create the ordinary worlds for the reader. What is happening in the ordinary world for the person, for the woman, before she goes traveling? What's the trigger for the traveler that makes her want to leave home? The conflict and the challenges, right? What's the low point in the travels? Does she get stuck? Is the baggage lost? Does she not know where she's staying that night? Is the hotel booked? Does she get food poisoning, right? Who does she find along the way in the way of friends or mentors, the assistants, the gifts, and then situations improve? She finds the hostel. She gets rewarded with money. Oh my God, perfect example. When I was in college, I took a Greyhound bus trip for 4 days out to Arizona to be with the boyfriend I had fallen in love with from the first floor of my apartment building at college. He graduated. It was summer vacation, and then I was coming back to school in September. And I ended up landing in Tucson, Arizona with $1.26 in my pocket. I don't even know if I owned a credit card. And the assistance I got was some lady in Dallas, Texas, which was the bus stop before, had bought me a chocolate candy bar and some milk. So it's like you find assistance along your journeys. And I did have a return ticket home, but it was like, you know, I hadn't showered for 3 days.
Oh, that's nothing.
Oh, yeah. So for me, that was a big deal. Okay. But the $1.26, but the assistance, the mentor. I also had a really great bus driver who dropped me off in Dallas. He picked me up. I forget where the stop was before that. but he noticed on my ticket it was Fitchburg, Mass. So he literally, was from Mass. We had the best conversation. So there's the improvement. But then Act 2, the plot twist, right? So Yasmin, it sounds like that was nothing. You've got some deeper challenges, right? Deeper threats.
I've gone a lot longer without showering is all.
Well, yeah. I was tired, hungry, sweaty, dirty. It was like, yeah. Okay. So the highest stakes, the final battle. So can you see how this fits in? What was the lowest of the low point on the travels? Getting sick for a long time until you had to make the decision to fly home. You couldn't keep traveling over in Asia. Right? Mm-hmm. And so then now you've come home, you have to move back in with the folks, the parents, but you're different. You're transformed. You've got expansion. There's more maturity. You've seen the world. Mm. So it's a return, but things...
The plot twist is the hard part, honestly.
Well, you don't even have to think of it as a plot twist if that is tying you up in knots. Just think about what the deeper challenges were.
And what is supposed to be in Act 2? Like that's when the backstory is?
Yeah, the backstory can be throughout this, but you have to, I still think you have to create, like you're going to create the setting. You have to, okay, wait a minute. Let me slow down. Right? So I'm going to tie this in directly to the setting conversation, because what's happening is, and I've been thinking about your story, Yasmin. You know what happened, but you've got to create that world for us. Ella's creating the world of the tree people. I'm just going to call them the tree people, okay? Or the Norwegians, or whatever you want to call them, Ella, right? So it's like you're going to create that world for the reader so that we then can go on the journey with you. If the writer just dumps the readers into the action too soon without giving us a foundation or some way to understand it, it's really hard to keep going. Mm-hmm. Okay. Does that mean you have to dump all of your backstory right at the beginning? No, because then you know what that's like? That's like James Michener's book, Hawaii. Have any of you guys read it? The paperback's like this thick.
I've read Michener, but not Hawaii.
Which one have you read?
I've read The Source a couple times.
Okay, I didn't read that one.
Yeah, that's about the Middle East and the creation of Israel and the history of the Israelites.
By Michener?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's like Hawaii, it's like Centennial, it's the same idea. Starts with the dinosaurs.
Okay, exactly. So that's the thing. Michener writes these books. My mother loved Hawaii, the book Hawaii, and I was like, God, what was I, 18 years old, something like that. And seriously, it's a normal paperback book height-wise, but the sucker is like 3 inches thick. It's got like 1,100 pages or 1,300 pages, something crazy like that. So I start reading the book, and it starts with the dinosaurs. Michener writes in such a descriptive way. He takes you through the eons and the lava, and then the lava cooled, and then the formation of a single cell animal. And then, like the reptiles crawled on land. And I got, I don't know, 50 pages, 100. And I was like, Mom, like I hated it, right? And she's like, just keep reading. It'll get better. So I hung in there, and it did, but I had to get through a third of the book. And Michener's whole thing was the formation of the Hawaiian islands, from lava to cells to plants. The bird pooped and had a seed, and the seed grew, and there was a coconut, and right? But then he starts getting into the genealogy of the Hawaiian rulers and the culture and the love and the hates and the killings and and then the white man shows up, and the colonization and all the politics. It's a phenomenal book if you can hang in there with it. So that backstory, my point is, How much backstory do you need? So Yasmin, you've got to figure out how much backstory do you need. Do you need to go back to the dinosaurs? I don't think so, right? Unless you're going to tie, listen, unless you're going to tie your story into like the culture of your ancestors that formed the mental patterns and beliefs and the mores for how, you know, you as a woman traveler, right? You know, like the constraints put upon the student, and she did everything for what the parents believed till she got so fed up and she had to break out and break away from all those, everyone else's expectations to find her freedom. So there is a way that you could do that ancestrally, but that's not the story you told me you were writing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that would be a different story, right? That would be, there are, you know, Catherine Cookson is an Irish writer. She did beautiful stories of multi-generational families. And, you know, those stories of the Irish immigrants, their roots in Ireland and the potato famine, and then they came over to America, and then they were bricklayers, and they were maids, and the loves and the deaths, and then the successes, you know, and they can span the generations. That's perfectly acceptable. That's a different book. You know, your story is one person in one lifetime. And that said, there could be sprinkled throughout your story little bits and pieces without making it ancestral genealogical study. Is this making sense? Does this help clarify? Yeah.
I think
Okay.
so.
Yeah. And, you know, Lauren, for your blog, you're doing a beautiful job of snippets of the family life, but your blog is very much centered on your family contemporary, this generation. Now, unless you wanted to bring in a recipe from the grandmother, for instance, right? A treasured family recipe, then you could talk, but you don't need this big, long genealogical. So when you're structuring your stories, you're trying to make the structure fit what your writing goal is. That's the bottom line. Okay. And when you think backstory, think about those pearls on a string I mentioned.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Any other comments about plot? All right, then I'm moving forward. So think about your plot, you're creating that setting, and then from the ordinary world into the extraordinary world, you're going to be creating setting all throughout. Lord of the Rings, from the hobbits to the elvish country, right? The elvish to Mordor to the Mines of Moria, all of that setting had to be written, all of that description, and then the dialogue and the action. So setting does flow through your story as well. So what do we mean by setting? You're building the world for your reader. So is it real or is it imagined or is it a combination? Okay, so Ella, you've got this beautiful real tree in the backyard and you're going to describe real elements of it, but the fact that there's dragons in there is what we would consider the imagination piece. Right? You know, if you're talking a kingdom of dragons, if you're talking about the culture of the dragons, all of that's going to be, right? Imagine.
Yeah.
So location, right? So location also includes the topography, the weather, okay? Climate, you could even, you know, if climate change is part of that. What's the population in a location? Meaning, is it rural? Is it dense city? Okay. And what's the time you're placing it in? Mishner, we just said, went from the dinosaurs to like the 1960s, I think. Was practically when his book ended. You know, millenniums, right? But I pretty much stuck with the era or decades. You know, the 1960s are way different than the 1980s, you know, or the year, right? You know what? Historical events should also go in here. Right? That can be part of setting. The Jews being rounded up on the pogroms, you know, during World War II. Israel's, you know, all the conflict, the Middle East conflict, right? That can have a huge impact. Can you guys think of anything else you can, and you can add to this. This can be brainstorming as well. So when you think of setting, what else are you thinking of? Right? Technology is part of the setting in the sense that what's being used or what's the lack thereof. If you're talking a farmhouse on the plains back in the 1940s Dust Bowl, your technology is a horse-drawn plow. It's the washboard for laundry, right? If we're talking technology today, it's high efficiency washing machines that use less than 5 gallons per load type deal, right? If you're talking space, fantasy, science fiction, futuristic, then the laundry is, you know, like a dust shower or neutralization of bacterial particles or light beams, or it's whatever that looks like, right? Think in terms of, you know, communication too, right? Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Work stuff, right? Work technology. You know, hand tool, the Bronze Age. I mean, God, when humanity was figuring out the Bronze Age and, you know, fire and how to make a hammer, then they made swords, and, you know, then they made plow, you know, the actual plows, right? They went from wood, which would break, to metal. So, and now we've got huge combines on, you know, those, like the huge food manufacturing farms with all the chemicals. So do you see how technology plays? So Yasmin, for your story, what's the role of the location, the topography, the weather, the monsoons, right? The typhoon, what do you call them?
Typhoons.
Yeah, typhoons versus hurricanes.
Cyclones.
Cyclones,
right?
yeah. Poor, the you know, the slums versus rich cities, right? So transportation, is it the rickshaws? Is it the tuk-tuks or tuk-tuks or
Tuk-tuk.
tuk-tuks? I was close, okay. Or is it, you know, the Maseratis, or the, like, think Monte Carlo with the really rich cars. Okay, so socioeconomics, what's the status symbols in your setting? Is it the clothing? Is it, vacations is another one I didn't put in here. But vacations are part of this as well, right? What's the income level for the jobs? You know, is there inheritances? The medieval system in Europe, you know, the eldest son inheriting everything. The second son went into the clergy usually, right? The third son would go into the army or the military service, right? So all of this builds the setting, okay? When you're getting into details for describing the events, there's also, you know, time of day, right? As long as the weather and the seasons, right? So summer in New England here, we had, you know, 80 degrees and thunderstorms this afternoon. Wintertime, we can have, you know, 10, 20 degrees and a blizzard. So all of that makes, you know, what's the time of day can really help set the stage for a romance, right? Oh, Ella, for yours, you know, you're talking seasons with the tree, the leaves falling, the leaves budding out, the full flush of greenery in the summer, the shade.
Yeah, the setting for this story is becoming very important as far as the topography and the industry related agriculture is becoming really important to it.
Yep. Yep. So, you know, all of that has a place or a role. sometimes setting the location can almost become a character in and of itself.
Mhm.
Think in terms of Antarctica. Have you guys read the book about Shackleton? I want to say Robert Shackleton.
I've
Shackleton.
seen the movie.
Okay, yeah. I don't know that I've seen the movie. but
Ernest, I think, yeah. with Kenneth
Ernest, yeah.
Branagh. Yeah.
Okay, right. And you know, they took the ship Endurance to research, and this was in the early 1900s or late 1800s, early 1900s, I want to say.
Yeah, early 20th.
Yeah, but very early.
Before
And
Vortex.
Oh God, before Vortex, yeah. And the ship got caught and frozen in the ice, and the ice in Antarctica literally crushed the ship as they were stranded for months. So they had to make some life and death decisions, and he took a few of the guys, and it was an 800-mile trek across Antarctica with boats, but then sometimes they'd have to carry the boats. And so the climate can, you know, certainly sets the stage with these storms and winds and everything else, but it almost can become a character as well. And I'll talk more about character next week, but it can be that important. So I'm glad you're seeing the importance, Ella, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lori, you're using some of this in the settings with the barbecue, or, you know, the turning the oven on in the summer makes your kitchen steamy, right?
All right.
Yasmin, go ahead.
The picnic we had, the like clear blue day.
Perfect. The clear blue day, sunny, right? Puffy clouds. You got it, right? Yeah, and that clear blue summer day can also set the stage for if you had ants become a major factor on your picnic. The ants could become a character. Bees could become a character, right? So
Right.
sometimes setting and character kind of go hand in hand. Okay, so Yasmin, are you seeing how to apply this to your story?
I think this part is I'm good with.
Okay, good. And you did a good job describing, you know, the restaurant, the waiter, like you, and perhaps you could even build that out a little more, but, you know, the restaurant scene and what are the dishes of food and, you know, the waiter, all of that ties into play. Okay.
Is that my story that you're thinking of?
Well, when when you have dinner with the parents. And if
I don't describe any of the food or the waiter or anything.
Well, then maybe that
Maybe
would
I
help.
should.
Right.
But because that would be the setting that would help the reader understand. And, you know, depending on which restaurant setting you choose or which meal, you know, what language is the waiter speaking, what food choices are there, you're really going to bring the reader into the world at that moment, right? So if it's an Italian restaurant, that means something else. If it's a Middle Eastern restaurant, that means something else. If it's a restaurant aligned with your culture, you've brought us into the culture. And
It was just the lobby of the hotel. We didn't go out to eat.
Oh, that's right. That's right. That's right. So.
But I get what you're saying.
Okay, thank you for understanding. Because even the lobby of the hotel, there's a big difference between, you know, a 5-star Ritz-Carlton hotel and, like, you know, Motel 8 lobby. Okay, so you got it. Any other comments or questions? Moving on. So how do you research your setting if you need help with it? All right, you can try Google, Wikipedia. You know what? Use caution because you know some of those sources are not legit and anybody can change anything, right? Libraries, there are public library sources and a lot of stuff's more online these days than before. And I know some libraries are maybe not allowing patrons in, but there's curbside pickup of books. So, you know, you still have access to some research materials. There are university libraries, and sometimes they get whole collections of donations of material, whether it's families or famous people or artwork or artifacts, whatever. Private libraries are a different story. You would have to really research, you know, who the private source is, to figure out if it's appropriate for you to access that and gain permission. So that may not apply to your stories as much. You know, Ella, for you, like the university libraries on trees, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Historical societies can also play a part. It just depends on what kind of, you know, what research you need to do. All right. Professional associations. So again, like the arborist, that's where consulting with an arborist about trees, or even like the University of New Hampshire has an agricultural department.
Yep.
Okay.
I just wrote that down.
Did you?
Yeah.
We're on the same wavelength. Yep. Okay. There's always journals, newspapers, you know, or books. And again, use credible sources. Genealogical searches can sometimes play a part, and that could be, you know, ancestry.com. But if they're using, again, I would say credible you know, credible source information. Town hall records, birth records, death records, like official records. Church records can sometimes, you know, the baptisms, the weddings, the funerals. Okay. The Library of Library of Congress is a fantastic source of information as well. So I'm going to actually attach a link to that Library of Congress, so you'll have that. Sometimes you can get in touch with recordings for materials, whether it's audio, you know, actual recordings, whether it's interviews, as our lovely Ella the Pearl does, the interviews, right? Visual, there's different formats of visual. And you know, the earliest audio recordings are like wax records, and then it went to, you know, the 45s, and then the, you know, standard ones, and yeah. So, and it's like, and then, you know, beta, VHS, all that stuff, cassette tapes. Hopefully a lot of that stuff is now transcribed into digital. And then visual, yeah, there's different formats. We used to have the old microfiche, right? Movies. If you're going to use a movie from the culture, then you've got to like be careful of copyright and then credit it appropriately. So that's what I would say with that. And also, you know, not everything in movies is 100% factual, right? I know. Oh,
Are
no.
you sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's on the internet. It must be true. It's in the movies, right? It came out in
Okay.
Hollywood. Yeah. Yeah. I always get a kick out of, like, you know, the movies, and it's like, it's based on a real event, but this was changed, and we changed this, and we made it in a different year, and that person's different, and we added in. So it's like, okay, that's what I'm saying. Just use some discernment, some good judgment about that. And here's the interviews. First person accounts. I was there when the house burned versus a secondary retelling. It's like, oh, good example. My great grandfather, when I was a little girl, he talked about the Coconut Grove fire in Boston, probably in like the late, I want to say like the 1920s, 1917, 1920, something like that. And it was a nightclub, and people were dancing, and then there was all these paper decorations for, you know, palm trees, and it just went up in flames and people died. It's kind of like that nightclub fire in Rhode Island in my time, but this was in his time. So was he there? No, but he remembers it in the newspapers because it wasn't on television, right?
Mhm.
So if I were going to use that, that would be hearsay for me. I wasn't there. I could recollect, you know, Pat telling me the story, but I couldn't write down what the coconut fire was like. It's not a first person account. Okay. So just be careful with that. So Lauren, you're doing a lot of the blog stuff. It's your first person account, but you could also put in there, when your grandmother told you this, for instance, or it's like you remember her telling me the story of, but that's your secondary retelling.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. That's what I have for you on the learning piece. Any last comments, questions, concerns? Are you able to digest it and apply it?
Mhm.
Yes? Okay then. So if there's nothing else, then we're ready for the Writing Hero Love Support Scene.
Well, I have a question too about, and I don't know, maybe this is completely off
No?
a tangent, but when I was thinking of Yasmin's story that you can create composites or fictional characters that express something that needs to be stated in the story.
Mm-hmm.
So, or to create a dramatic device that doesn't necessarily, it's not 100% true to the events, but it's true to the power of the story.
It is, but in that case, her story becomes fiction, not
Versus a
first-person memoir,
Okay, gotcha. Yes, correct.
right?
Okay.
Okay. So you just want to tease those out,
Mhm.
but that's a great question. You just want to be clear. What was the book with all the pills on it and stuff? And the guy, it turns out it wasn't. He wrote it as a memoir, and then he was found out.
Oh, yeah.
I know what you're talking about. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got the blue cover with all those like pill, the capsules, like,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So just use care. Don't build something as a memoir, or a documentary and then have fictional in it, right?
Mm.
No, it's not going to be a memoir.
No, right. I get that.
Mm.
Right. Right. But I think that answers Ella's question, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
As long as I guess you're sincere in what the device does versus just using it to sensationalize or just make it easier if I create this character that has no honest purpose to sensationalize my story or make the plot work better. That's different than creating a character to express something that's real, true to the story.
Mm-hmm.
Or true to the history of your fictionalized history.
Right. You can, here's the thing. Don't confuse the reader and be intentional. So like, as long as you know what the purpose is, you could do either one of those, or you could actually even do both of those.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, as long as it serves the story and it's true to the form.
Okay. Yes.
Right. So
Yep.
if you want a sensationalized story, if you want something that's dramatic,
Mm-hmm.
you could have a very flamboyant character that sensationalizes it, but that's going to have a different tone to the story than having a character that's more historically accurate or more true.
Correct. Yes. That's the fine line.
Yeah, and you get to make those decisions as you go along, and sometimes, and this is the story evolution, like that's the story you're writing will take shape. It will morph. You'll read it aloud, and then you find what works, what doesn't work. You'll have other people read it for feedback, and if they're confused or they don't like it, or they say, what's the motivation for that, or how do I handle it, or what's the character even doing in there, or this didn't fit, you're gonna get that, and that's why there's rewrites. We're all of you, we're just drafting right now, and then you edit as you go along. Does that make sense? So these projects, because you're at the beginning stages, they will evolve, they will change, and you'll see what's going to fit, what's not, while you're finding your voice in how you want to handle it.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's some hard and fast rules, like if you're trying to write a memoir, you're not going to fictionalize it. If you're writing fiction, it's okay. Right? So you'll figure it out. All right. And that's what this group and this program's for. And yeah. And not that this is the be all and the end all source either. So great question. All right. Ready for the love support seat? Okay. So just here's, you know, some of the critique factors. You can ask the group for anything special, any special focus, you know, otherwise we will take it away. Good. All right. So who's up? Because we've got about 15 minutes.
I can go.
Okay. Thank you, Lauren.
All right. How to get your child to try new foods. Ever have a toddler or child refuse to eat his or her meal? Do you or your spouse become frustrated, annoyed, even mad when you witness your child push a plate of untouched food across the table? It's happened to me. Just the other day, Julia, who is 8, crinkled her nose as she scrutinized the hot, slaved-over meal on her plate. I don't like this, she said. Take one bite, I said. Try it. She silently refused, and I could sense her eyeing me across the table throughout the meal. Her look seemed to tempt me to comment on the fact she had not taken that one bite. I fought back many urges to guilt her into eating or continuously repeating the phrase, just try one bite. As the meal finished and we started to clear plates from the table, I said, I think you are afraid you'll like it. The pout on Julia's face struggled to fight back a smile. I am not, she shouted. Fine, I said, standing up, irritated with her stubbornness. Don't eat. We want to avoid a power struggle at mealtime and want kids to eat foods that are important for their growing bodies. So, how do we eliminate the battle over food? Here are 3 ways to get kids to try new foods. Meal plan. Gather meal ideas from each family member for the week. Each person can look forward to a meal or 2 they like. Then, focusing on the week as a whole and not each individual day or meal can relieve pressure to consume every bite of food offered. Offer variety. Incorporate at least 2 of the main food groups into meals and snacks. Kids may not eat everything offered, but at least what they do eat has nutritional value that can serve as a building block towards choosing more of those foods as they grow up. Some examples include cheese and crackers, hummus and cut up vegetables, fruit and yogurt, or peanut butter on whole grain bread. For more information on the 5 food groups, visit choosemyplate.gov. And I inserted an infographic, What's My Plate All About, infographic highlighting the 5 food groups based on the Dietary Guidelines for Americans. Next part of the blog. Encourage a no thank you bite. This technique is simple and over time can become a great habit. Take just one bite of food. If you like it, keep eating. If you don't like it, at least you tried it. Tastes do change. Just because you didn't like it now doesn't mean it won't have a different flavor to you next time. This is also a strategy of the Cooking Matters program of the New Hampshire Food Bank, where I volunteer. In addition, if kids dislike the meal, families can offer alternatives, cereal and milk or a peanut butter sandwich. These substitutions can be expanded upon to incorporate different foods in the future. Or add a flavor enhancer, like barbecue sauce, ranch dressing. My kids love this. And I've seen one of my nephews polish off chicken that's been coated in hummus. Make the choices that work for your family to help kids become more receptive to trying a variety of foods. What ideas have worked to get your kids to eat/try different foods? That's it.
Nice. All right. Feedback for Lauren. I like it. Yeah. Who wants
I
to get-
don't know if it's my writing style. I always hesitate to give it back feedback to someone because my writing style may be so different from someone else's that my feedback is filtered through how I would write it. Does that make sense? And Lauren can decide that.
Lauren can decide that. Here's the other thing I want to say. When we're offering feedback, it's in what I strive for is it's a love support seat. Yes, it can be constructive, but from the intentions of love and respect and contributing to the other person, right? That's what's different about this group compared to other writing groups, because believe me, I started writing and critique was critical. It had a whole different tone to it. So, and Lauren's going to listen respectfully and be open, receptive to it, and then she can decide whether to use it or not.
Mhm.
So, but you can feedback, you can certainly respond to, I liked it, this made sense to me, it had
Yeah.
a nice tone, I didn't like this, I was confused by that, I think
Right.
this would strengthen it. You
Mhm.
can even ask why, you know? So does that
'Cause
help?
I-
Those are some of the guidelines.
Yeah. Oh, and I understand that. Because I most was able to follow the good advice and expertise when there were fewer filler words, like the word then, or and then you can, or have you ever. I found it easier to follow with more direct statements that, as you wrote, I noticed more direct statements and less conversational style.
Okay.
And I began to follow it more easily in the more direct statements at the end of the other half.
Okay.
So
Like,
that was just easier for me. Like, okay, tell me what I need to do.
okay, so versus like I story tell in the beginning and then
Right.
the facts at the end. Okay.
Yeah. And so that was easier for me. And I wanted to hear your really strong punch thing. Like, I think it would begin with "we want to." It's in the middle. We want. Oh, how does it go? We want to do
Yeah,
something.
Yeah.
It's like,
we want to avoid a power struggle at mealtimes and want kids.
right.
That
I
one?
almost wanted to hear that at the beginning. It's like, oh, okay, that's what she wants. She's going to help me not have.
Okay.
Is boom, So it's like, oh, great. She's going to help me not have this power struggle. So that really made me happy
Okay.
when I heard that. And for me, that would have been a hook. Like, oh my gosh, she's going to make my life easier. What is she going to tell me? And
Okay.
just tell me what I can do. And you do that. So that really was a punch for me. Like, oh, great.
Thanks.
And I did get a little lost in the dialogue about the polite bite,
No, thank
where
you.
I
Bite.
wasn't sure whose tastes were going to change over time.
Okay.
If you were telling that to your daughter or to the child, or you're telling it to me, to just be aware that kids will change over time. So I was just a little bit confused by that.
Okay.
But overall, it was like, oh, great. She's going to give me advice so I can end this problem with my kid. So that was good. That's all my feedback. You're welcome.
Okay, Lauren, how did that land for you?
Good. I appreciate the this perspective of the reader and like what Ella sees works in it. And I liked that there was a solution to a problem. I guess all of my posts should be about solving someone's problem. So maybe maybe tweaking, maybe putting that part at the beginning and tweaking it, but it's good.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good.
Okay, yeah, and yeah, because Ella, how does that feel for you hearing Lauren's response to your feedback?
I don't know, but she found it, and it helps me remember, oh, okay, maybe I need to put my punch closer to the top too.
Yeah.
So it always helps me too.
Yeah, but she appreciated it. So see, this is how this works.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, Yasmin, do you want to give any feedback to Lauren?
I really liked the instructions and how you gave them in the. But I did, however, have the same challenge that Ella was talking about, where I couldn't follow whether it was supposed to be directive or a narrative. And I think in your case, if you're open to suggestions, I would say that doing directives and adding narratives to like sort of use examples of the directives might be a good way to do that.
Okay.
So like using so I guess there's no other way to say that. So using your examples and sort of identifying the scenario there, I think is really good. You're really good at both of those things, and I think meshing them together was what the challenge was.
Okay,
All right. Well,
thank you.
good. So I'm really liking your ability to have a narrative and then tips and then a recipe. And I think on your blog, if you consistently follow that format, your readers you're following will get used to that. That said, I definitely like Ella's idea about, that problem statement right at the beginning. And it could start out, do you have a child who avoids eating whatever, right?
Mhm.
What was the title? How to get your kids? What's the title?
How to get your kids, where is it? Sorry. How to get your child to try new foods.
Okay, so it's to try new foods. You could almost, and see how this lands. You don't have to do this, but it could be 3 ways to have your child try new foods. Like, because you really want to hone in on those 3 tips, or 3 tips to overcome, you could have a whole blog theme of fussy eaters,
Right. Yeah.
3 tips to have your child try new foods. Do you have a child who pushes the plate away? And then in my house, Julia does. And that's where so it's like you set up the problem, tell the story, the narrative about Julia. You're going to get really concrete with the 3 tips. Okay, so it's the meal planning, meals for the whole week. See, and I'm not sure. I kind of lost it on that. Was it choosing the food or the no thank you bite? So even I wasn't sure what the 3 or the 4 steps were.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I think I don't know if this made it, but I staggered off with the picture I added. So it was, meal plan, choose variety, and then a no thank you bite.
okay, and I heard like the meal for the snacks and stuff as like a separate tip, but you're putting both of those together. Okay, that's fine. So, but just have, like, in creating that consistent structure for every blog, definitely will help you. I love that you included the infographic, right? Which is also going to help with like the recipe portion type deal.
Mhm.
So you don't, and the recipe portion could be that hummus. Maybe you put the hummus and the veggies and stuff, or the peanut butter in the, like, if you have that set structure, then those snacks with the suggestions go in the bottom.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, this is all very helpful, because in the past, other people have commented they like hearing the story. So working, or my story and my experiences, so working that in sometimes is really difficult into the directed versus the conversation, because I feel like I have to go back and forth. But I think this was a little different than my other structures, and I can rearrange some things to make it flow better, like the structure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I don't want you to lose the narrative. I love the narrative, and it's like, do you have a child who's a fussy eater? Do you have a child who doesn't eat healthy foods? However you want to structure that main question, right? Here's like in my house, this happened with Julia. And then you just lay out the narrative.
Okay.
Right? Which is the personal part of you. We get to know you. And as the mom with a fussy kid, I mean, Caleb's like, he's getting sick of eating mac and cheese. Well, he's eating mac and cheese for like a year straight because the kid eats one thing on the plate. Heaven forbid you put 2 items on a plate together, right? And he even said, I only eat one thing for a meal. Like, so now it's chicken nuggets, and he's getting sick of chicken nuggets. He was such a good baby. He was such a good eater as a baby, but something changed. So my point is, I love that narrative. So that's really crisp and clear, but then you can make the tips really crisp and clear, and then the recipes really crisp and clear.
Okay.
So you're not going to lose anything, right? And that would also clear up that confusion about who's the we want to and the take one bite.
Yes.
Because I heard that as you're writing to the parents to, instruct them for their child. But that way you could get that clear. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, great. But otherwise, I am really liking this because,
Mm.
because as somebody trying to feed an 8-year-old, even if I'm not the mom, I can totally relate to it. And it's like,
Yeah.
yes, give me those tips. The snack food, that's really important because if Heidi or I cut up an apple and just have the apple on the table, and it's like he'll end up eating it. We're just not making a big deal getting in a power struggle about eat an apple.
Right.
And he won't. It's a power struggle,
Hmm.
right? So hopefully that was helpful. But yes, it's coming along. I'm loving
yeah.
how your voice is developing, Lauren.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. Who's reading next?
I don't really have anything to read. I just have a nugget. So I don't really have
Do you
something
want
with dialogue or a real dialogue.
to share your nuggets?
Yeah,
You want
I will, just so it will take all of 5 minutes, I guess.
Yeah.
Just because especially with a W, this would be part of the first between 1 and 2.
Yep.
So it's building up where the main character, Walter, is just really in a bad way. And
Okay.
it's maybe just one example. It wouldn't have to be the opening.
Okay, so not necessarily the opening. Okay.
Yeah, but it's so I guess it's kind of building up to that idea of how do you establish that he needs some help, that something's got to change.
I have a question. Did you establish what age group you're targeting?
Well, he seems to be getting older. It
Okay.
seems to be more like 10 years old, I guess, 4th grade.
Okay.
Not having children, I guess this is hard. I'll rely on you moms to, I mean, I worked in the fourth and 3rd grade for a course of a year with children from 3rd into 4th grade and mostly boys. So that's really all I'm going on is this one classroom of mostly boys, kind of thing. That's all I really have. And I have a neighbor who's about 10 years old who's really struggling in his relationship with his mom. And so I'm thinking of him as well. I don't know. So
Just keep writing, and then this, can come out later for the polishing and the definition. So yeah.
Okay. You'll be sorry, Walter yelled out to his mom. I'll put worms in your oatmeal and go to the zoo myself. He twisted the ropes of the old tire swing up tight and spun around. He dragged his feet on the ground to stop the swing. Dizzy and out of breath, Walter wiped the snot off his face with his white t-shirt. Walter's mother, Robbie, stared at her son from the back porch. A sip of hot tea burned her lip. Why was Walter so angry and unkind? How could she help him? Robbie watched him choke back sobs and use his t-shirt like a Kleenex again. Walter twisted the tire swing again as tight as it would go. He lifted his feet to release the tension. Whomp, whomp. The ground blurred, the tire wobbled. When all the motion had stopped, Walter puked up his breakfast. Ants crawled over his feet onto the bits of food. This was not the first time Walter lost privileges because of misbehaving. He had looked forward to an afternoon at the zoo, and he and his new friend Lily would make faces at the kimono dragons and snakes. They would yell out to the otters and polar bears in the water tanks. Lily was his new best friend, and Walter had promised her lunch at the hot dog stand. No, now all that was canceled because Walter was rude and said hurtful things to old Miss Root, who lived across the street. Ms. Root smelled of old socks and burped garlic. His mom delivered her some groceries each Wednesday and made him go too. Robbie explained that it's unkind to remark on a person's tattered clothes and bad breath. This morning, Walter refused to go into the kitchen and remarked that something must be dead in there. Maybe it was Mr. Root. That ended all plans to go to the zoo with Lily.
Okay.
That was great.
I agree.
Oh, it was fun to write it.
Good.
So I'm trying to set up his bad behavior, and this is almost like it's getting worse and worse and worse.
Okay, so you definitely set that up with the attitude. I love your writing with the worms, yelling at his mom. You had again and again in there.
Yeah.
Was that on purpose or repetition?
Well, I realized that it's like that. Yeah, that's just not gonna.
Okay, so you
that's
want,
not good.
I would recommend taking one of those out.
Yeah.
Okay. The womp, excellent. So you got some sound effects in there. Puking up breakfast, I could totally see this kid getting himself so dizzy that he does it. And then lost privileges. So here's my suggestion for you.
Mhm.
You move from puking breakfast to he lost his privileges, and all this is telling versus showing us.
Right.
That's where you can add dialogue in. Because if a kid puked his breakfast up, his mom, chances are, is going to be saying something. And he's going to be saying something back. And
Okay.
you can show us through dialogue that
Right.
he lost his privileges. Okay. Now, if he's losing the privileges, this is where it was confusing for me.
Mhm.
Over the Mrs. Root incident, then I do think you could be clear about that, because what is the incident? Where did that come? Did that come before losing his breakfast on the swing? So, or was puking the last straw? And
Okay. I guess the story of Mrs. Root caused him to lose his privileges, and that caused him to be angry at his mom and have the tantrum.
then you need to flip it and tell us the Mrs. Root incident first. Or
Okay.
set it up as a flashback, but I need more about the Mrs. Root incident to make that make sense to me, hearing it.
Mhm.
Okay, but that would make it make sense that he's angry, because now you've set the stage. You've brought us into his world of anger because, right?
Mhm.
And then Robbie's, in dialogue, you can show her frustration, her annoyance with him, her losing patience, you can, and again, this is not the first chapter, but, what are the characteristics, and we'll do characteristics next week, but just briefly, it's like when Walter is so infuriating, what's Robbie's behaviors? Is she, picking her nails? Is she twisting her shirt? I mean, he's wiping his snot on his t-shirt. Loved it. You've got so many good things in here. So now let's just build out some of it.
Yeah.
Is this, yeah? So, but your writing style's really entertaining and humorous. Yeah. So there's a lot going for it. A lot of good things going for it. Yeah. So as a first draft, as a draft, you're on to something, and now finesse it.
Right. Okay.
Hopefully that helps.
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, and you could even give us a little bit more, it's like, where's Mrs. Root live, and what's the relationship, and zoo and the zoo and Lily, you handled that piece beautifully.
Okay. Because I don't want to well, I'll listen to what Lauren and Yasmin, if they have any feedback. If you don't, that's fine. Because I wanted to begin something of an actual story.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you definitely did that. And now you kind of alluded to he was mad with what he first said with the worms and the oatmeal thing, and then you worked up to the backstory. I saw the flow with the W. You definitely have the basics there, and I love the dialogue and your descriptions of things. Like Denise, I'll echo that they were very entertaining.
Okay, good. Okay.
And I was trying to think of the age. Sorry.
Yeah.
The age. I mean, the way I think you can do. I think like a fourth grade, like maybe third to fourth grade to 12, like kind of.
I'll read it.
And yeah.
Okay. Because kids are much more sophisticated today than I certainly was when I was 8 or 9. I think they are. I don't know.
Some
I
are,
don't know.
but then some, there's like Caleb still has a big hunk of innocence left to him, thank
Mhm.
God. And,
Mhm.
but the other piece is, the kids and the teasing and some things have not changed generationally. It's like,
Yeah.
he's still going, and it's like, oh my God, I would have thought that would have improved,
Mhm.
so, yeah. And then, but technology wise, so the setting, technology, right? The games, the hobbies. It's like, oh my good Lord, with the Nintendo Switch and the Mario Kart, and it's like the technology is now Zoom for
Yes.
online learning. That's
Mhm.
totally beyond anything that, we grew up with, right? So,
Okay.
I mean, we weren't quite in the days of the abacus, but,
Okay.
yeah. So I think you've got a great start.
Good. Okay.
All right. Yasmin, did you want to add anything else, or we're going to move on to your reading?
No, I was just gonna say, don't take this the wrong way, Ella.
Uh-oh. Okay.
But when you read it, I was like, holy shit. What do she need us for?
Oh, you're very kind. Oh my gosh, you're very kind. Thank you.
Yeah,
It's
I was very
good.
like surprised at how near perfect it was for a first draft.
You're very kind. Well, I found reading it. Reading it's half the battle, I guess. But thank you. So, but
And I
too before. Okay,
no,
I
go ahead.
talked too much. No, I was gonna because I was gonna say to Lauren, as being on the radio, the idea is that you when in doubt, seduce. You want to seduce the reader, and that's fun. And I was thinking of Lauren, my producer, is hammering into my very nonlinear brain consistency, and that the reader wants to know it every day at 1:05 you're going to say the weather, and every day at 1:30 you are going to have baseball statistics. And so I would think with the blogging, and maybe Denise, you can agree, the reader wants to know exactly what your blog is going to tell them in what order. Is that making sense? And so if you do your story and then the hints and tips, right? The narrative versus directive, is that what it is?
Yep.
And find that perfect blend that you're going to have, the reader's going to love that, and they're going to want to see that every time. And so I think that, that's important. I think it's great you've got that mixture of both, because they'll say, okay, I'm going to get a great little story, and they're just going to tell me what to do. I just wanted to kind of add that part of, it's that people want to know what they're going to get next, I think. Does that make sense, Denise? They want consistency.
Absolutely. And that Missouri Star Quilt Company, I believe I forwarded you one of their emails. If not, I will. Their daily deal email always starts with a narrative story, and it's like only one paragraph.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it goes to 2 paragraphs. At the most, it's 2, right? And but I love their little stories. And then I look at what the daily deal special on fabric or tools or notions, and then I think the third part they have is probably like a client testimonial, or here's what the client customer. For Jordan's Fabric, it's usually a little bit of narrative. It's the fabric for sale, and then they do customer quilt projects, right? So that consistency is important. Yeah. And I just think, you're going to have the how to do something with your kids is one thing, but if you start labeling your blog posts as, 3 tips to, or 3 ways to get your kids, right? 5 steps to, barbecue. Like, that's because the readers on your website can scan through your blog post and go, oh, that's it. 3 tips to like not battle with your kid over over veggies. You could even make it like that, like 3 tips to end the battle over vegetables, right? Or not trying new foods. It's like, oh, they're going to be like, oh my God, I want to hear that, right? I want to read that one. So, okay.
Yeah.
And then within your in the body of the, sorry, I had an ice pack on my wrist because I fell today and it had sprung a leak in the, now I'm dealing with all these little gel beads.
Oh,
Okay, so totally got sidetracked. I apologize. Little squirrel moment there, but all okay. So where was I? I'm sorry, I did lose my train of thought. What was I saying?
Oh, about finding the tips, I think.
Yeah, finding the tips, and then they'll be like, that's exactly what I want. Because it's like
Yeah.
clear, it's identifiable.
Yeah.
Oh, and then within the body of your copy, that's where you can put the how-tos.
Mhm.
okay.
So so it's not bad at all. Just restructure it.
Yes. Okay.
Okay?
Well, thank you too for the encouragement. I feel uplifted here, like, okay, I got a good start. So thank you.
You've got a good start and you've got a
Yeah.
good writing style.
Yeah. Great start.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, it's
Yeah. So thank you for reading your nugget, because now you're introducing your writing style to us. We have the benefit of hearing your style, and it's like, I like it.
good. Okay.
Right? Okay, Yasmin, did you read yet? You haven't read.
I don't have anything to read.
Nothing, honey.
I don't want to read the piece that I don't like that
All
I
right.
wrote. Yeah.
Oh. Oh, no, sorry. See, now I'm got. So I had a question,
Okay.
but I want, if you want to try and persuade Yasmin to share that, that's fine.
I respect that. Is there any, because we still have some time left, and if you would like to use your time in a different way, is there a way that we can serve you?
Yeah, give me a minute.
Is there another chapter you've written that you'd like to read, or?
There's I have basically for the parts of this book, I've repurposed some blogs.
Okay.
So I wonder if I could read you one of those blogs, and see what you think about putting it into a story.
Sure, please do.
Okay. Okay. I believe that there are signs from God and miracles every day. Some stand out in my mind because I feel their significance in the moment. One of the most challenging things in my journey has been to let go of my need to control, ask questions, get answers, move forward in my time and my motion. The flow is God's flow, and the hardest part is not only not having any say or control in the matter, but also not having any idea where the flow goes. I just have to blindly trust that the flow goes to goodness and it will be perfect for me. Holy crap, what a hard kind of trust to have in a belief. Blind faith is what it's called. Not because faith is blind, but because people who have blind faith can walk with their eyes closed and know that no matter how rocky it is, they will never trip. Surism. That's what blind faith is, and it's way more powerful than optimism. Imagine that. I'm not optimistic that everything is good, has goodness, that love is the most powerful thing in the world, that I can get exactly what I want and need in this life just by being a good and loving person. No, I'm not optimistic, I'm sure. I have 100% faith in it. Nothing is impossible, but sometimes it feels impossible to keep the eyes on the prize, on the possible end result, on the glory and the dawn. To slowly but surely lock my eyes closed and walk forward with confidence in my feet and a smile on my face. The other day I was in Nha Trang, Vietnam. It's a great island and beach town, and I meant to take full advantage of it to rest, restore, and swim. While there I had spoken with some people in passing, and the vibe was really negative. They said something about me losing my camera or having it stolen, and I said how terrible that would be since it has all of my 3,000 photos and video memories from the last 6 months. For some reason, that thought of losing my camera and how terrible it would be remained distantly in the back of my mind. I brushed it off, the feeling this conversation gave me, and I moved on. I always recognize when I say that something is horrible or terrible, and I always try to eliminate those words from my language. I remember God says, "Did you say terrible? You haven't seen anything yet." Just the same as he says, "Amazing? You haven't seen anything yet." Wording things positively, no matter how unrealistic people might call me, is my main goal. You can blow all of your notions of unrealism out of your mind. That is what makes you you and me me. I know there is no such thing as realism or unrealism or being either of those things. Realism is a cloaked dagger to the heart of positive thinking. I tell myself, no matter what your reasoning mind might say, have faith in God and believe blindly in his goodness. Now everything is beautiful and perfect. Realism can go find someone else to bother. My thinking is that I can be realistic all I want, but as soon as being realistic conflicts with being positive, that's when I know that reason is steering me wrong. Not but a few days after this brief and negative encounter, some Dutch friends I made and I took a boat tour called the Funky Monkey Tour, complete with hysterical live music, sun tanning, island beach snorkeling, beer, and a buffet seafood lunch. All for $10. Perfect day. The sun was the strongest it had been, and I was loving every second of it. The water was calm, and when it came time to go snorkeling, I grabbed my trusty waterproof camera, wrapped the cord around my wrist, and jumped in the water with the other girls. We swam away from the boat, adapting to the rush of cold turning to warm, while the guys working on the boat threw us all life rings so we could float around if we wanted. I didn't want one because I prefer to swim, but I caught it and was wrapping it around my arm when I noticed that the camera attached to the cord on my wrist was gone. The durable cord I had used for 6 months on land, sea, air, and all kinds of adventure travel had snapped in the ocean. Oh my God. This can't be real. My world travel adventure alone, where all I have are my memories, what I take with me, and no way to share with anyone else, and all of those things I might have forgotten but captured anyway. All the videos of dancing with strangers, speeches from tour guides, and weird cultural experiences. All gone. No longer tangible. This can't be real. I looked around in the water with a horrified urgency on my face and in my movement. The water was not clear. It was 10 feet deep and I could swim to the bottom, but because I couldn't see in front of me, my lungs panicked at the possibility of not resurfacing, and I couldn't swim too deep because of it. I lost it. It's gone, I kept thinking. I told the guy on the boat and asked the captain on the boat and asked him to help me look for it. I don't give up without a fight. There were scuba divers present because some people paid extra for it. I asked the tour guide if a scuba diver could look for it. He said yes, but if they find the camera, you have to pay them. If you find it, I said, I will give you everything in my wallet. I will be so happy. It will be better than paying for a new camera, and those photos and videos are literally priceless to me. It took 10 minutes for the diver to be ready, and I felt myself asking, is he coming? Is he coming? We only have 45 minutes here. I had a foot-tapping, impatient sense of urgency. Eventually, the diver was ready, and I pointed him in the direction I was swimming. There was no current at the time, aside from surface boats, so I had hoped he would find it. My heart was entirely engulfed in the camera. I was trying to control the situation, the panic, the finding of it. I was trying to make it happen. I was like a neurotic mom with 5 kids at Disney World. Okay, now everyone form a single file line, hold hands, and don't make any faces at the pictures. Oh yeah, pictures. I won't be able to take with my waterproof camera that won't be able to go underwater anymore. I took hold of myself when I realized what danger my actions and words were ensuing because of my effort to force the situation. I have to let go of this, I thought. It's not the end of the world. What's meant to happen will happen. After this thought, one of the girls I traveled with came up to me and said something about, oh, poor me, I hope they find it. It's the fucking ocean. I've been on the ocean my whole life, lost thousands of things, found none of them. I ignored the negativity. I knew that I had to reverse what I had said and done to force my will onto this situation. I think he'll find it. It's easy to look for things with scuba gear. There's no current, and it's only 10 feet deep. I'd find it myself if I had scuba gear, but they said I'd have to pay for it. So I'm not worried. I'm actually pretty sure they'll find it. All the factors say yes, sureism, optimism, I got this. I kept saying stuff like that for about 20 minutes and no such luck. The diver went down before I could describe the camera or the location. The diver was circling the whole area, but not where I told him to. All these factors, I just want to fix this. I need to talk to him, but he's below the water. I can't do anything. I have to just sit. I need to release this stress. I need to remove myself from the situation and let go of my control and my need. I was on a tour, for Christ's sake. I'm on the other side of the world. I shouldn't waste this time worrying and not enjoying. It's out of my hands. So I swam, and I swam far and fast until the boat was distant from my sight and I was almost to shore where the reef could be seen from the surface. I was thinking the whole time, it's not the end of the world. I said a prayer out loud. If I'm meant to have it, then it will come back to me. If I'm not meant to have it, then I don't want it. God returns to me what's mine or replaces it with something better. And I said this over and over until finally I was used to the idea. I could breathe. I could get a new camera. I can let go of these photos and videos. I have memories that have my memories. It's okay. Que sera, sera. I looked down at my breaststroke and saw the ocean bottom. I saw that it was jagged and rocky. And suddenly it occurred to me the diver was looking all around the area as if there was a current. But there's no current and the bottom is rocky. My camera is there. He'll find it. I became sure of it. Absolute blind faith. I have no room for doubt because the time for hope is now. And the time for mourning is later or never, hopefully. Now determines that. Suddenly I had a really strange feeling that might sound a little crazy. I felt like a shark was swimming up to me. I panicked and I was alone and my bodily reflex just jerked around to look into the water. Nothing. I knew there was no shark, but I felt like I was being chased. I felt like I had to get out of there and swim back to the boat as fast as I could. So I returned to the boat. The first diver was tired and didn't find anything, so I pointed directly where I landed in the water and I said, it's right there. And then the diver went down and I just thought, it's okay if he comes up empty-handed. And I peeked down into the water and suddenly I saw, arise, scuba saint, through the foggy water of doom. I saw a flash of the bright orange from my camera and up rises the scuba diver god, having rescued it from the rocky depths. Holy crap, this is a miracle. This is literally a miracle. I took the camera and thanked him. I gave him everything in my wallet. And when I went home, I plugged in the camera and I had all my photos and videos. That's it.
Woo!
I'm so glad you got it back. You made peace without getting it back, but I'm happy you got it back.
Yeah.
I love your concepts and insights. I think that is really amazing, what you've been through and what you are, what's the best way? Like reflecting on that is the word I was looking for. I think you could do more with dialogue to tell the story a little bit more.
Okay.
And I liked how you talked about blind faith and then you tied it in a little bit later. And I think maybe you can like focus more on the blind faith with it and maybe center, because you have a couple concepts and I think that might be more focused with it. But I love reading it, or I love listening to it. I love hearing you read it.
Cool, thank you. So expand on blind faith as a concept.
Yeah.
And obviously it's not even told in the form of the narrative that I was going to do my book in. So I haven't, but this is like an example of one of those blogs that I would take and sort of add dialogue, repurpose, add more description, make it less of just a narrative that it is, and more of an interactive story, and integrate those ideas into the whole book. So
like a chapter or two, like, yeah, I think you had like a little bit like the scuba diver came and helped, or first it was like the negative people kind of like brought you down, like you're gonna lose the camera, and then you had the scuba diver help you, and so you had the setting of the the W plot kind of in there too.
Yeah. I agree with what Lauren was saying, and I could follow the ideas. The tension was certainly there as far as will she, because I would not have been so detached. I would have been hysterical. And I would have been lying to myself that it'll all be okay. If I'm supposed to have it, I will. I would have been lying through my teeth.
So you felt the tension because
Yeah.
I felt like I was using a lot of the same descriptive words over and over to try
Yes.
and make the tension felt, but it was also annoying to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I got what you were saying because I understood all the head stuff. I would like to hear it told in fiction.
Mm-hmm.
To say all of that through the character in your book and bring in the people, bring in the senses. I think I'd understand more of what you were trying to tell me through fiction. Fictionalizing it, is that the right word?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm telling the book in third person.
Yeah, I would get it, and I would have stayed because I myself, it was getting too head for me.
Yeah.
And it's like, does she find the fucking camera? Just tell me that she finds the camera. I can't stand it. I don't care about all this shit in her head. Does she find it or not? You know? And gosh, she's so evolved because I would have been hysterical. So yeah, I would love to hear that same insight and reflection in fiction. Yeah, I guess. I don't.
Nope.
That's all I. It's like, I should get, you know.
Yeah, and she got it back, so thank goodness for that. I liked your story arc, and I like how you started out with the miracles and blind faith and trust, and then you wrapped up your stories with blind faith. I think you could have, there's a point where you could have made that point about the miracles stronger. Like, you know, the beads on the string I've talked about? You could have tied that in. I'd have to read it to point that out. And there was something in the middle too. When you were reading, I was like, oh, I had a suggestion, but you like, I didn't write it, like I didn't catch it. But, oh, and then you had one really good line. No, you had lots more than one really good line. The line you had at the top about the trust and the blind faith and you won't trip, I absolutely love that.
Oh, about not needing to see where you're walking?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That was really powerful. I love your concept of sure-ism. So that was good. You know, you haven't seen anything yet. The unrealism stuff is great. The horrible, terrible. And it's so funny. I went and fell literally with my supper. I had just finished cooking. I was hurrying because I was gonna prep for class. And I fell flat on full body contact into my plate.
Oh, Lord.
Okay. And you know, yeah, the knee, the ankle, but flat on my belly on the floor, completely wiped out. I've been thinking about like tripping or getting injured, like did it to myself. So at any rate, so there's definitely something to that. So here's my suggestions for what I'd like.
Mm-hmm.
You can do what you want with them. So it's like the water was cloudy. I'd like more, you know, like what color was it? How cloudy was it? That type of thing.
As I was reading it, I was like, these descriptions suck.
They don't suck. You're too hard on yourself.
You're not there, though.
They're a starting point. You need to flesh it out more.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the thing with your story is you just need to add, you need to flesh it out. You've already identified more dialogue. You were swimming in the water, and the next thing I knew, you were having a foot tapping. So it's like I missed the point where you got out of the water and were on the boat.
Okay.
Okay. Now you were talking to the captain, but like from an action standpoint, you could have been talking to the captain from the water, but your foot tapping, like, so were you in the water with the foot tapping or on the boat, right? So just a little more of the transitions in the action, Yasmin.
Mhm.
We haven't really talked about that. Okay. Obviously, you've got this beautiful resolution of the camera is found. The meltdown, you know, like Ella was saying, should be hysterical. You alluded to it in the head. What did it look like? You know, were you crying? Were you yelling? So, yeah.
So there was another concept that I was trying to touch on it a little bit in there, which was intuition, getting an intuitive feeling.
I got that with the nudges and towards the end. I don't think you need to browbeat that. You know, you were compelled. To me, there have been a few instances in my life where, and I'm going to call it spirit. Spirit compels me.
Mm-hmm.
And in one case, it compelled me to just stop by a river, and I intuitively knew it was an Animal Crossing, and yet there's a thunder and lightning storm coming, and I'm in this flat valley, and I'm like the only, you know, thing in this field. But the wolf came, or a coyote, I think it was a wolf, whatever it was, and it was literally like 25 feet away from me, and because it was trying to cross, and I popped up from the riverbed, and we just, you know, it was this surreal natural moment. So, but the compulsion, because I was trying to get home because of the thunder and lightning, and it was as if there was a hand on my chest blocking me. And I literally said out loud, it's like, all right, I'll wait a moment. So it happens. That's kind of supernatural. So I get that compulsion. I don't think you need to browbeat the intuition, or you could just say, I had, you know, it was intuitive that, right? Or you could describe it and then say, oh, there's my intuition. That could be done with a very delicate touch. What I would say is you don't need to put too many concepts in here, because you'll actually dilute the power of them. So if you're starting with the miracles and the trust, then you know, blind faith, believe me, that's plenty. But yeah, you're really onto something.
Okay.
And then, like you said, you know, the dialogue, who were the characters, you know, how much money was in your wallet, right? Was it 20 bucks? Was it 200 bucks? Sometimes it's those little details that really flesh it out, that make it more real.
I had a little more detail at the end, but I got tired of reading it.
Oh, you're cheating us.
I did have a little bit more at the end, but I was like, it should really just wrap up. This is enough. So I just.
No, read the end, because to me it was like that ended a little abruptly. So what's the end?
Okay, let me see. I X'd out, I think. Oh crap. One second. Sorry, it's on a website, so it's mine, but it's on a website.
What's the website?
I don't even. Where is it? I'll tell you after. I'll tell you after. Okay. I took the camera and thanked them. I wanted to hug them or kiss them, but both of the scuba divers disappeared to undress from their swim gear. After I established that the camera still worked just fine after 30 minutes under the water, 30 minutes, I put it away, and the tour guide told me what I had to pay. Something like 500,000 baht, at least 5 days of food for me. But I remembered what I said, and I said it several times. I told the tour guide I wanted to thank the divers. They came and found me, and when they did, I emptied my wallet without counting it. I complained too much about money. I'm too desperate for it to maintain my appropriate budget to complete this journey in the time and manner I want. This was one of my many lessons God was giving me, to let go, to trust that I'll be provided for, to not give power to money or my plan. The power is completely in the hands of God. Let go and let God. That's what that is. Let go of my own plan for life and let God do his work. I can just sit back and be in awe of the miracles that occur and the goodness that finds me. Perfect day.
There you go. Now that sort of wraps it up more. 'Cause now you've gone back to the control, letting go, letting God's control. That to me feels more finished.
But you know, it says something if the reader gets annoyed with what she wrote.
If the reader or the writer?
I, the writer, sorry.
Well, I don't know. As a reader, I'm enjoying it. How about the other two readers?
Same as a reader.
So what does that tell you, Yasmin?
Yeah, but there was definitely, I appreciate it, you guys, but there was definitely a point where it was like, okay, let's wrap this up. Come on. Right?
So then simplify it. So then either stick with blind faith and trust, right? Because you've got miracles. You start out with miracles. You're talking about control and God's control. You've got blind faith and trust. They're all good, but you could actually simplify the story, make it more concise, and I believe in some respects it could be even more impactful if you stick to one or two of those concepts instead of all four. Right?
Okay.
And then now I do agree, here's where I agree with you at the end when you're talking about the money and then your money paradigm. Now you just introduced a whole other belief system. You could sprinkle in a little of the money, but then that whole story about, or that could be the next chapter, is you can take that money piece and then continue your story with what have you learned about money and desperate for money, and right?
Yeah, in the first or second chapter, I talk a lot about the relationship with money.
Yeah.
So this will come later after that.
Okay. So, but that piece, like, I don't know that you needed all of that last paragraph to wrap it up. I like some of the elements, the scuba divers, the resolution, the bot. Were the scuba divers, Vietnamese, or were they tourists? In my head, I was thinking tourists, but it sounds like they were staff.
Yeah, staff.
Okay, but so, 5,000 back to them or something, right? What size boat was it? Right? You could set up, the setting. So here, you did it well with it's only $10 a day, and this is everything that was included.
Yeah.
All right. The ocean, you could even mention specifically, unless you did and I missed it. Sorry, I didn't write it down. Was it a bay? Was it the ocean? What beach? What ocean? Right? You might have even said it.
I don't remember.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So again,
I gotta research it.
well, but that's where the research comes in for setting, right?
You did say it was only 10 feet deep, I think.
Right. So was it a river? Was it an estuary? I mean, it's just sometimes the little things in the details, they can make it so realistic. They can make it grounds it. Okay. That said, if you put too much in, then you can just clog it up. But I think for your story, you've got so much in the reflection, introspection, head stuff. It needs to be grounded in the dialogue and will build the other characters. And now you've got a fuller, fleshed out piece of writing. That's my feedback. Do with it what you will.
Awesome.
Okay, so I do hope that helps. It's said with good intentions.
Thank you all.
Okay, you're welcome. But you did a beautiful job of starting with, miracles, blind faith, trust, and then you wrapped it up at the end, so you bookended it.
Yeah, well, I was thinking as a part of the theme as a part of one of the pieces of my book, because we talked last time about developing the characters, the parents and stuff, and that's where I did it, but I really didn't like it. And and I think I don't want to do that. I think that I want the only real character that even has a name to be the main character.
Okay. But you do have characters. The captain's a character. The scuba diver's a characters.
Right. It's more like those characters. I don't feel the need for there to be a big backstory that I know, because when you come across strangers, you don't know anything about them. So I'd rather come across each person as a traveler and not as like this all-knowing narrator.
Yeah, no, if you're, I'll just relate it to my experiences, being in the Caribbean. It's like you hop on one of those cruise boats, you're with, say, 20 people. You don't know anyone's backstories. You might have a couple beers or split a meal with them. You learn bits and pieces. You can have some dialogue with them, and then especially if you need to ask the captain for help, you could give us a little bit more about, was the captain this crusty guy? Was he impatient? You gave us some. You did. Okay. I'm acknowledging what you did right. So then, but no, so you don't need to do a backstory on everybody. You don't, but you want it to be realistic enough that they're kind of fleshed out, and I mean that pun intended.
Mm-hmm.
They're not just stick figures.
Yeah, because even when you travel, you learn people's names, but really it's like that German guy over there and the group of Israelis over there and the Malaysian guy who dropped me off, and or the tuk-tuk driver. People tend to be described by where they're from. Yep. And I think I kind of want to leave that as that throughout the story, and have descriptors be like the person's title and not their name.
Yeah, that will work for your, for the type of writing you're doing. And if you've got some consistency in there, it will make sense. I get that. Ella's going to write a story. I would expect there to be names in your story, Ella.
Walter's such a dick. I didn't even realize.
Oh, well, he's 9. And that's all, yeah, I mean, I know that's the thing. How do you build up how much he needs help? And then he turns around. But yeah, then he starts carving in the tree, and that's when they lose patience with him.
Okay. Yep. And that the theme of destruction, it's like, so how have other people destroyed Walter, sorry. It could be, how does Robbie either destroy or support Walter?
Mm-hmm.
It could be, how has Robbie been destroyed that impacts her parenting of Walter? But then the crisis point is the property, the physical damage to the tree. Do the humans see his need for help, or does that trigger the dragons to help Walter?
Yes, old Mrs. Witter Root.
Oh, I love it.
Connects him to the dragon, because so the old wise woman, connects the hero to where he needs to go.
There you go.
And the Aborigons realize, okay, this has got to stop. This kid's beating on me, kind of thing. So
okay, so there's the archetype of the crone.
Yeah.
Beautiful. The the kid's in the role of the hero, but in this case, he's also in the role of the villain to the Aborigons, right? And then they need a protector, in which case maybe the crone is protecting the Aborigons because it's going to set Walter straight. Perhaps, maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, he's just taking out his anger on the tree because he thinks it's just a tree.
Right.
And they finally get angry at him and decide to take action.
Yep.
Kind of thing.
So he goes from the ordinary world, it's just a tree, into the extraordinary world of the Aborigons.
Right.
Real. Right?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Hopefully. Hopefully he will.
Well, but that's the story arc. And if not, you've got to have a really good reason for him not.
Right.
Because, not every story has to have a happy ending, but there has to be some growth Otherwise, we get
Yeah.
oh, what did I bother reading that for?
Yeah.
Like, that's part of the hero's journey. There has to be some change.
And maybe I'll get a food segment in there. That could be part of his oppositional disorder, right? What do they call that? Something oppositional disorder?
Oppositional defiant disorder.
Defiance disorder. And it can be a meal. There could be a meal scene in this.
Yeah, then food fight.
And a food fight. Yeah, I got to work on that.
Yeah.
I'm going to write that down. Food. Okay.
Well,
There
and
you
you
go.
gotta go with what the Borgons eat, and, so
Yeah, I don't know what they
the
eat.
whole culture,
Yeah.
the structure, the
Yeah.
relationships of the Borgons to themselves,
Hmm.
the decision makers, right?
Yeah, I don't know if they're that complex. I know it's after 9 o'clock. I don't want to. But one thing I had a question, and I don't know if Walter should be a girl. Is there too much male-oriented fiction out there where Walter should be a girl?
Worry less about what's out there.
Yeah, and just tell my story.
We'll tell your story.
Walter's story. Okay.
Because Walter has Lily already, so
Yeah,
right? Write your story,
true.
and then you're gonna. It's first draft. Give yourself
right.
tell the story. Let it flow out. The story will tell you: is it Walter and Lily, or does it become Lily and then Walter?
Yeah. Okay.
All right, and you're
I
right.
think that's
We're a little over. We got started a couple minutes late, so it is
I
9:06.
think other than that.
I gotta run though, you guys. So
Okay.
I'll
I
see
need
you.
my beauty sleep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to see you all.
Anything for goals? What do you?
Oh, goals.
I think I'm gonna start my second chapter.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Is
Okay.
it still 3 hours or?
Yeah, I'll easily. That's just one day.
Okay. You got it. All right, Lauren, your goal. Thank you, Yasmin. Have a good week.
Good
You
night.
too.
Bye, Yasmin. Thank you. I'm going to keep it simple and edit my blog post.
Okay, great. Yeah, because it's coming
Um,
along. Okay, Ella, sorry.
I think I have a plot scenario worked out, so I'm going to try and put that on a W.
Okay,
I have a plot scenario about what the journey is going to be.
okay.
Yeah.
And, whoops.
Like I have a protagonist, I have an antagonist, I have a story, I have crisis
Yep.
and
All right,
resolution.
So that's
Yeah.
progress.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're doing it. You're doing it.
Yeah, good.
All right. So that wraps us up for tonight. And as always, let's close our circle with our sacred circle.
Oh, I love this.
That you'll always remember you're braver than you believe, you're stronger than you seem, you're smarter than you think, and you're loved more than you know.
Yes.
So from my courageous heart to yours, have a great week writing. And I thank you so much.
Thank you,
Welcome.
Denise.
Good night.
Thank you, Ella. Good night.
Good night, Lauren. Good night, Denise.
Good night. Take care, everyone.